Welcome, everyone. It is Monday, June 28th, 2021. It is 5:15, and the Carroll City Council meeting shall now commence. Will everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call is everyone's here except for Councilman Fleshner. He's probably be here shortly. The first item on the agenda is the consent agenda, which is approval of the minutes of the June 14th meeting, approval of bills and claims. Under licenses and permits, we have the renewal of a Class B beer permit with Sunday sales for Pizza Hut. We have the renewal of a Class C beer permit with Sunday sales for Dries Oil Company Incorporated. There was a list of cigarette permits was also included. We also received the civil service eligibility list. The next item is the American Rescue Plan Act request for funding. We also have the water system risk and resilience assessment. Downtown Streetscape Phase 10 change order number 1, and the revised lease agreement for Merchants Park, along with the Iowa High School Athletic Association for the state baseball tournament of 2021. Are there any questions with regards to the consent agenda?
I would move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. There's no other discussion. We'll go ahead and vote, please.
Bates? Yes. Haley?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
Cox?
Yes.
Dirk?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. If there's anybody online, please unmute your mics now. And otherwise, the next item is the oral requests and communications from the audience for items not on the agenda. Seeing none, we will move to ordinances. And our first ordinance this evening is a rezoning request from B2 General Business District to RB1, a residential business transitional district. And it is 5:17, and we will open a public hearing. And Mike, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is a request that we received from Alexa and Lucas Linhart to rezone the north 72 feet of Lot 1 and the north 72 feet of the east 10 feet of Lot 2, Block B of the 7th Street addition to Carroll County, Carroll, Iowa, from the B2 General Business District to RB1 Business Residential Transitional District. The address of this property is 711 North West Street, and this is the former Zwiski Insurance Office. So when we consider rezonings, the council should consider kind of 3 main criteria. First is a comprehensive plan. Is this a potential spot zoning? And then public input. Reviewing the comprehensive plan serves as a long-term planning document for the community improvements, development, and growth for the city, and zoning should be in conformance with it. This property is zoned, or it's identified in the comprehensive plan as general business, and the proposed rezoning to RB1 Residential Business Transitional District generally is not in conformance with the comprehensive plan with that designation. Now, one criteria we really should stop and look at before kind of stopping there would be kind of the conforming uses that are occurring around the property, or the uses that are occurring around the property. The subject property is surrounded generally with single-family residential, with the exception of a 4-unit apartment building to the west, and then a commercial use of a dry cleaner to the southeast. We're considering really kind of the uses that are kind of on the ground. We do believe that the proposed rezoning to permit both business and a single-family residential use on the property appears to be compatible with the units and the uses that are adjacent to the property. So I think from that context, the rezoning does make sense. In spot zoning, the requested rezoning to RB1 residential transitional does exist both north and east of the property. Therefore, it does not appear to be constituted spot zoning from that criteria. As of public input, as required by the city's zoning ordinance, letters were sent to property owners within 200 feet of the rezoning, and notice was also published in the Carroll Times Herald on June 1st and June 18th, notifying the public of the requested rezoning. As of the date of this memo, other than one call just kind of inquiring about some information about the proposed rezoning, there's really been no public comments against the proposed rezoning or for the public or for the rezoning. The Planning and Zoning Commission did review this at their June 9th meeting, and the commission did vote to recommend the City Council approve the proposed rezoning. And the staff recommendation is that the City Council consider approving the request to rezone the property as earlier stated from the B2 General Business District to the RB1 Residential Business Transitional District. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the council has this evening.
So on your diagram, RB1 is the purple.
I believe so, yes.
So
That's
this would be in congruent to or adjacent to that RB1 already,
Correct. So this is just really extending the district.
just extending it.
I didn't notice her earlier, but Alexa is here this evening too. She would be able to answer any questions the council has.
Any questions from the audience? This is a public hearing. Seeing and hearing none. That was the only question I had. Did anybody else have any questions?
No, I just noticed it's contiguous, so.
Right.
Spot zoning, that's good.
With that, it is 5:22 and we'll close the public hearing. And find my other sheet here. Well, I'll look for a motion with waive the first reading for the ordinance. We'll probably have to go through this 3 times. So I need a motion to let the first reading and rezone the north 72 feet of lot 1 and the north 72 feet of the east 10 feet of lot 2, block B, 7th Street addition to Carroll, Carroll County, Iowa, from B2, which is General Business District, to RB1 Residential Business Transitional District.
So moved. Second.
There's a motion and a second. If there's no other discussion, we'll go ahead and vote, please.
This is for the first reading, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Fleshner,
Yes.
Haley,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
Base. Yes. Dirks.
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you. Then this will be brought back to the next
Correct.
meeting for a second reading. Okay, thank you. Thanks. The next item under the ordinances is the sanitary sewer service charges. And Randy, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. An ordinance has been prepared to codify your earlier discussions on the sanitary sewer rate study. This ordinance includes, as the rate study did, funding for operation and maintenance of the wastewater system, as well as the proposed capital improvements. And it also projects equity with the significant industrial users over a period of 10 years. This ordinance was adapted from what you'd earlier seen as alternative 5.10A, which was that equitable distribution of user rates over the 10-year period. It does distribute the revenue through the end of the 10-year period to 92% residential, commercial, and 8% significant industrial user. This ordinance is for a 3-year period, the first 3 years of that 10-year projection. And I've included in your memorandum a tabulation of the impact of the ordinance on residential commercial users, as well as the 2 significant industrial users in both dollar amounts and percentages for those 3-year periods. So unless there are any questions, I'd recommend your consideration of passage and approval of the ordinance on the sanitary sewer service charges.
Does this one have to go through 3 readings too, or it does?
Yes.
So I was thinking.
So we're really after the acceptance of the first reading, correct?
Correct. So we're just after the first reading. So we'll let the first reading.
I'd make a motion to,
Randy, I don't see the percentage range for the residential small end users on this chart. The
It's in
percent.
percent column. It's 1.4% in each percent column.
Okay, I was looking at the chart below.
you good?
I'm good.
Okay. I'd move to accept the first reading.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. There's no other discussion. We'll go ahead and vote, please.
Base? Yes. Jerks?
Yes.
Fleshner?
Yes.
Haley?
Yes.
Cots?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you. That takes care of ordinances. The next item is resolutions. And the first item under that is the wastewater treatment plant re-rating of treatment capacity, the engineering services agreement. And Randy, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 2 agreements for re-rating the wastewater treatment plant treatment capacity have been prepared by Veenstra & Kim. One agreement is for re-rating the BOD only. The second agreement is for re-rating the BOD, suspended solids, and nitrogen capacities at the plant. The scope of work for the 2 are real similar. Pretty simple evaluation of the historical performance of the plant, and then the petition to the DNR to re-rate the plant. Compensations are for the BOD only, $4,800 lump sum, and for BOD solids, suspended solids, and nitrogen, $8,800. Completion is similar. They're a month apart. For BOD only, it's August 31st. And for BOD suspended solids and nitrogen, it's September 30th. Libby Patton is zoomed in if you have any questions of her. Otherwise, the recommendation is for your consideration of acceptance of the agreement for re-rating the wastewater treatment capacity for BOD, suspended solids, and nitrogen in the amount of $8,800.
Randy, will we have to, once they complete that, will they just send it automatically? Do we have to vote on sending it? Or the whole thing is taken care of all in this one?
I would think that this
Resolution.
decision would take care of it for you. If you want it brought back to your table, that can certainly be done.
I'm okay with just sending it.
Okay.
The BOD, just for background, is to help out the issue at the solid waste. And the TSS and TKN is at our request as we're revisiting this currently.
Yeah, the initial request at the solid waste or of the solid waste, sorry about that, was for BOD only.
Right.
But the direction was to work with the Solid Waste Management Commission, and I would anticipate that working with them would include all the constituents that they would discharge into the plant. So it is probably will be a little bit more wide-ranging than BOD only in that discussion.
Well, in this way, we don't have it come back for the TSS and TKN later, correct?
Right. Mhm.
Thank you.
Any questions for Randy? I know Libby's on. Does anybody have any questions for Libby?
Looks good. That's what we asked for.
Right. With that, I will need a motion to accept the Veenstra & Kim Incorporated agreement for re-rating the wastewater treatment plant capacity for BOD, TSS's, the total nitrogen in the amount of $8,800.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. There's no other discussion. We'll go and vote, please.
Jerks?
Yes.
Fleshner?
Yes.
Seaman? Yes. Base? Yes. Haley?
Yes.
Cots?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you. Thank you, Libby. The next item is the Corridor of Commerce Plan 2.0 Highway 30 Corridor Plan, public hearing and plan adoption. And it is 5:30, and we'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. And Mike, please.
Mayor and Council, tonight we're having the public hearing and consideration of plan adoption of the Corridor of Commerce Plan 2.0. This is the Highway 30 Corridor Plan. Charlie Carroll with RDG is here this evening. He'll kind of run through the overall plan with the council tonight. But just a way of background, this plan began back in October of last year. There was a steering committee that worked with the city on the development of this corridor plan. The committee did work extensively kind of over the winter, early springtime to get us to the point where this plan is here. And I really do want to appreciate and really commend them for their work on the plan and what they did. I think overall the scope of the plan or the idea of the plan was really to help provide a strategy for Carroll to remain a strong regional retail corridor and destination for the city, really in the light of the challenges from COVID-19, some of the retail environment that's occurring, and then also with the JCPenney's closing that's occurred. There's really kind of three main areas that this plan really is looked at. First, focusing kind of on the corridor itself and looking for opportunities on how we can identify market opportunities within the corridor, potential redevelopment, parking, current and future land uses along the corridor, and the need for public investment to encourage the type of development that we want to see in the corridor. The second was a review of the Highway 30 corridor, really from Pella and Cormark all the way westward to Walmart, and how that could be infrastructure and public investment can occur, both kind of in the streetscape realm, but also just in other investments of circulation and traffic flow. And then third was a review of the JCPenney site and really how that could be redeveloped. And this plan really does look at all those items and really does a fairly good job. So the Planning and Zoning Commission did review this plan at their June 9th meeting, and they did recommend that the City Council approve the Corridor of Commerce 2.0 plan. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Charlie to kind of review the plan with the council.
Thanks for coming, Charlie.
Thank you, Mike. Let's see if I can
So Laura, can you pull up the page?
Perfect. First try. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for having an opportunity to present the plan tonight. I know several of you served on our committee throughout the process and are very familiar with the plan. For the rest of you, just like to take a few minutes to go over some of the highlights. Mike talked about a lot of the main goals of the plan, but some of the major highlights obviously won't be able to dive into every single page, but I wanted to run over some of those with you, which this is kind of the same things we went over with the Planning and Zoning Commission as well. So a little bit more detail about the plan that to elaborate a little bit on Mike's comments. The original Corridor of Commerce plan adopted in 2003, as many of you are aware. And again, this plan is really a large public vision. It is different. During the process, we understood there was a little bit of confusion between the retail coach and what we were doing. This is different than that, but complementary to that. So this is not focusing on attracting, well, it is focusing on attracting retail new businesses, retaining businesses, but it was not the market study that the retail coach worked on. But really, as I just said, the paramount theme is still to attract and retain residents and businesses in Carroll. There's multiple things the plan does and does not do. It's really very similar in that sense to the original Corridor of Commerce plan as far as what it is supposed to do. It's guiding vision for the future. So it's been almost 20 years since that last plan, and we anticipate this being a 20-year plan as well. Maybe updated in between there a few times, but focusing on what the priorities should be from the public realm. And that will be policies and also investments, your CIP planning, And I just kind of jumped ahead there, not firm, can be changed as time goes on. Markets change, and specific projects even can be flexible as well. Regarding public property, again, very similar to the 2003 plan in that it really prioritizes implementation strategies that the city and its partners can take. So not just in the right of way or public ground, but also city-owned properties. And then future trail improvements as well, which goes along kind of with the public investment side. You can see some things it does not do here from that aspect. We provide in the plan with the help of the committee and the community ideas for streetscape improvements, ideas for imaging and character, but the exact design and engineering of those will take just that design and engineering to decide where exactly and how exactly those things will go in. Regarding private property, it really doesn't change anything as private property operates today. It still can operate as they do today, but it does provide a variety of options, specifically for several opportunity sites that we identified through the process. And this could provide options for folks interested in doing something with their land that maybe they've been thinking about doing, looking at market preferences, land potential. It's a guide for decision makers for you when somebody does come forward with a proposal to do something and along with the zoning code and the rezoning aspect that may be necessary, what the city visions from a more specific site plan aspect. Economic development, again, it doesn't dictate the use of private property, it doesn't change anything how existing property owners can operate their property today. It's really thinking about the future when somebody does come forward or something does change, that the city can look at from a decision-making lens. So quickly wanted to go over how we got here. It was a several month process. We really started in late fall of last year, setting the steps for website, for surveys, on the ground, did a tour in December of the corridor. Then into January, we started developing concepts with the committee and the community, presented some of those throughout the winter and into the spring, and continue to get feedback to where we are today. Again, we had a committee, don't want to overlook the work that the committee did. Folks from the community, the businesses down in the corridor, residents, stakeholders throughout the committee, obviously several of you serving on that as well. So very, very good committee, and very engaged throughout the process. This is something you probably notice every day driving through the corridor. For us coming from the outside, we really saw it immediately as kind of three different zones, the west and east approach areas. So the transitions from country into the community, the west and east transition zone. So transitioning from that approach into what would be the more dense downtown core, retail, shopping experience or services down traditional downtown. And so that's how we really organize the possibilities you see throughout the plan. Starting with mobility possibilities, we really focused on two things, and that came primarily from what we heard from the community in the survey, and then folks, we held a series of listening sessions with folks throughout the community as well. One was access management, so that meaning primarily the number of driveways, the number of crossings that those driveways have to different parking lots, to crossing pedestrian walkways, and the confusion and safety concerns that can cause. So we identify some opportunities to make that feel safer, in some instances suggesting areas that those could be consolidated into one driveway access point to several parking areas or business areas. The other being active transportation. This obviously folds out to the larger community, not just the corridor itself, but the term we use throughout is kind of the ribbons of movement that would move north and south out of the corridor. So one thing we identified, perhaps, I don't want to say not surprising to us, but maybe surprising to some people, is in our survey and input responses, a lot of people ranked high that they would like to see pedestrian pathway on at least one side of Highway 30. Now, when we asked about both sides, not so much, people are kind of like, well, okay. If you're gonna do it, sure, but it's not a huge priority, but at least one side was a high priority for most folks. So that was the goal we set out, is creating a plan for how to do that, and so the plan does detail, a method to do that, but then we got a little carried away and went citywide as well, and identified how that would connect to different destinations in the city as well.
And I would pause right there, because I think it's also an interesting thing is the committee, we went out what was the coldest day of the year so far. It got colder, but I remember it was 10 degrees, I believe.
Tons of snow.
Tons of
Ice.
snow, and it had just snowed the night before.
Yeah.
And what was remarkable about it, I think, and it was really eye-opening to the committee itself, was how many people were out and about, because we had walked the corridor, basically started at the rec center, walked past Fairway, and then walked all the way back to Hy-Vee, back to the rec center. And there was just a ton of people, foot traffic, especially around Fairway, and the mobile home areas on the south side. So it's pretty clear that kind of the need of just within a few hours, there was these kind of cow paths out there. And just, I think, illustrated the need for some of this pedestrian circulation. And that's a public investment side that would be made, and really looking at in the future.
Just to echo that, I mean, working on the east side of town, it's amazing how many people you see from Grant east all the way out to Farmer, just the foot traffic out there.
I'd say the same thing, 'cause I see them all day. In fact, I noticed that before, but then I read this, I thought, of course, there is a lot.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, and it really folds into this kind of one of the secondary priorities right up front was the imaging. And by imaging, us as planners, it means a lot of different things, but what a person sees and feels when they go into a place or drive through a community. And so when those sidewalk investments go in, there's opportunities to do other things as well, much of what, like we've already done with the streetscape improvements in the downtown core area. So, excuse me. So similarly, we split that up in the plan according to the approach, transition, and downtown areas as far as what types of, call them streetscape amenities, call them pedestrian amenities, imaging amenities, whatever you'd like to call them. But different types of family of elements that could be implemented in those areas when these improvements are made to really complement the pedestrian environment to make it safer, but also kind of create an image of coming through the corridor to downtown on both sides. So it's a little lighter on the approach areas as far as focusing more on landscaping rather than maybe fixtures and lower pedestrian amenities, and then the transition area starts to go through what that could be to complement to get to the downtown area. So the plan does propose, or at least shows some different lighting and tree planting ideas. Again, we showed, just based on comments we heard from the public and our committee about not being too crazy with public art and, crazy light fixtures and things, but perhaps something more subtle that would still be a feature that would draw people in, or at least not draw people in, but create a corridor aspect. So we show kind of a lighting fixture there. It's nothing terribly fancy. Again, much like the 2003 plan that showed renderings of different types of streetscape things, and none of them look exactly like they do were implemented, but the idea is there. So don't get too fixed on I don't really like that light. It's just the idea of something that maybe is a lighting feature that would go through. And then the kind of second half or bulk of the latter half of the document and the plan focuses on various development opportunities or possibilities. And this came through conversations with the committee and survey of ideas of ways to fill in some either infill sites or better utilized sites that are along the corridor. So that we could spend a lot of time going over each one of these, but I'll kind of give a high level summary going east to west. One of the first sites was what we call development of South Fields, just for lack of a better name. This is the area over by the Bella Vista Drive, between that there and the mobile home park. really is just agricultural fields right now. It is restricted somewhat by a floodplain on the south side of those fields. But clearly a development site potential in the future if the property owner were to ever kind of sell up a portion for development. A number of opportunities there, but likely some sort of frontage road along with maybe a major employer or some other office or commercial type uses. We just kind of, again, your future land use map kind of guides this area already to some extent, but we got a little bit more detailed on possibilities.
Look, this one here, like that photo, yeah, that's probably private held. That's not a public.
Yeah, so the
land area.
next series of slides are all private
Private,
property.
it's all private. Okay.
Yeah, so that'll be the remainder of the slides that we're showing, yeah. The next site is just north of that. It's kind of by the Fairway area, High Ridge Road on the north side and 7th Street and Plaza Drive. This site really stemmed from an opportunity or an idea to consolidate some driveway access points, better connect to neighborhoods to the north, and then information we had about Fairway owning some land around that area and potentially wanting to do some different things in the future. So you can see here the frontage road of Plaza Drive is extended all the way through High Ridge. This shows High Ridge Road getting extended south as well to connect to that frontage road. And then just shows a layout if Fairway were to move closer to Highway 30, how potentially their site could be reused and other, with the road realignments, would use sites around there as well. Again, we rarely see, something we draw get built exactly as shown. It's just an idea. It can spur, if a property owner was thinking about doing something, it can spur an idea if there's a developer that's interested in getting involved as well. It can give the head start for, say, a business or Fairway, for example, to pull the trigger on doing something if they've been thinking about it for a while. But otherwise, the main idea here is the transportation connections would be key if something big were ever to happen at this site. We'd want to maintain or create those transportation connections. Continuing east, perhaps the most talked about site of the entire process was this Southwest Grant Road intersection. This was right from the beginning, from the first survey and input we got. It was, this intersection is where the focal point of something big could happen, from either an imaging standpoint or something. Obviously, it's a vacant site, where Casey's used to be. So we showed here just kind of a fairly simple, actually, when you really think about it, building there. And part of that is because these city utilities are still partially in 6th Street, so it does restrict some development based on from a cost standpoint. But it really came out to is keeping that intersection from our committee and from the community, keeping the intersection more lighter green, maybe not building right up to the corner, softening up the intersection. So when we have big activities at the rec center, there's a lot of maybe activity in the area from that traffic wise, it feels safer and it feels a little buffered from that activity. And then the same thing kind of going on the northeast side. This was an opportunity site we identified because at the time there was a couple of these businesses for sale. We understand obviously longstanding businesses there that could very well be there for a long time. But we did also understand the need for parking in this area and saw that as an opportunity if this were to ever switch over to actually put some extra overflow parking. Parking's not something us as planners recommend often. We like to find other opportunities for parking, but this site is one of those that's probably one of the best uses if this site were ever to change into something else. It would from a number of people we heard the lack of parking and then also the pedestrian connection directly to the activity centers to the north there. Continuing west, this is on the other west side of downtown. This is really a small site, but talking with folks about this site, opportunity to fill in a little bit. This just shows a pretty simple building reconstruction along Highway 30. where the Edward Jones site is currently. Edward Jones would still remain there if they wanted to, could be a tenant in a new building that fills this half block. And then there's currently 3 rental homes on the backside. The owner of those had expressed the flexibility to maybe in the future try something different, maybe adding more density. So we showed an option of just some townhome type development with garages and parking on site as well. And then lastly, and perhaps the most difficult site that to see something probably in this planning horizon is call it the triangle site, but it's where U-Haul across from Ivy is on kind of the weird triangle by Quint Ave and Highway 30 there. This was strictly struck our interest in when we talked with the committee from an access management standpoint, just the number of driveways and safety aspect here. We drew up a master plan for the site, but really understand that's probably not going to happen unless there's big property, a master plan, like property, a developer came in and acquired all the land and decided to master plan it out. So we showed it for the sake of showing how transportation could be more efficient in this area, but the development possibility with a number of different property owners is likely a long-term idea, unless there was someone, like I said, that came in and for some reason saw an interest in buying up these properties. So lastly, the last chapter really focuses on implementation. This was a big key from our committee as well, making sure that there's projects to do right away that we can begin planning tomorrow and then longer term things as well. So it identifies that in an implementation table who the responsible parties should be. Obviously, the city can't do everything. There's others that need to be involved in helping out, much like the streetscape projects and downtown work that's been done over the years. So that identifies those and kind of the phasing schedule for possible project prioritization. Obviously, that's up to you and CIP and financial planning as well, but it provides a starting point to begin to look at. And I guess I got my slides backwards there, but again, that was a very high level review of the plan. I know there's a lot more in there than I can talk about in 20 minutes or so, but I'm happy to answer any detailed questions you do have.
With the questionnaires, the questions and answers, was that pretty helpful in making some of the decisions that you guys made?
Yeah, it was a good pulse to look at before we talked to the groups we did, the stakeholder groups. So we had groups of 10 or 12 folks of a variety of different expertise. And it was helpful when we could come back to the committee and be like, this is what we heard. And sometimes it differed than what our committee had told us at the beginning. So, but yes, very helpful program, yeah.
Where are those utilities that you talked about that, I mean, they're buried obviously, but
yeah,
tell me exactly.
So where Casey's used to be, is where what is actually still known as 6th Street, in kind of this half driveway, half road that's not actually connected all the way through. So
It's just on which side of that abandoned, I'm going to call it an abandoned road, 6th Street.
that I'm not sure either. Under the street as far as I know.
street is where.
That's what I'm wondering. Is that right there?
And I don't know if Brandy has a better, but it's under the street, maybe adjacent to the street too.
Yes, oh, there's some under the street and some
Are we
adjacent.
talking about sewer lines or what do we mean?
There's sanitary sewer and storm sewer and water.
That's kind of a big storm sewer area right through there too, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so there's a big culvert that goes diagonally across Grant Road, which presented its own challenges for pedestrians trying to create some sort of trail or pedestrian crossing.
Well, the DOT had just redone that corner a couple of years ago and widened it, and they redid that culvert that flows underneath. I think, did they redo the whole thing under the street or just part of it, under Highway 30?
Just extended it to
Just
the south.
extended it out to the south, okay. I would ask if it really changed the flooding there along Grand Park, but I don't think we have enough rain to make any to tell. Cause that drainage area used to, if it rained a lot, that could be full of water for a while,
Sure.
but it looks pretty dry. So,
So if we were to do something on that intersection, the southeast side is, whose land is that? You know, anybody know?
What's a combination? It's combination
Or
southwest.
southeast.
Oh, southeast.
Across from what this is, there's also
So there's like three different property owners in
Yeah.
there.
private mostly, is it
yeah.
still, the Subway used to be there.
Yep. And the former owner of Subway, the Subway,
He still owns it.
he still owns that.
Okay.
He bought it back from the DOT. And then there is,
'Cause there's quite a bit of
yeah,
open space on both sides.
Correct.
We have railroad on the south side, which interests me even more because you can, well, it even shows fixing both sides, actually all four sides.
Yeah.
Both on the south side, it seemed like it'd be easier to do something attractive. Empty. All private, basically, right?
It's all private.
Tropical snow. is-
now I would say on the southwest corner, the city still owns, some land there. So where the old Casey's was, that's still
That's still
under city
ours.
ownership.
Okay.
we had to buy that for that purpose, for the DOT, I think, didn't we?
Yeah, I'm not sure the whole history of that. That was before I was here. But
There was a deal, I guess, with Casey's to acquire that property from them. And then part of it was used for that Grant Road intersection
Widening.
project.
There were gas tanks there, those are gone.
Yes.
Did we talk any about making those crossings safer going north to south across 30 for ball game attendees and the like that? I remember some of that from a few
I
years ago.
thought there was, in one of the diagrams here about adding like pedestrian timers and things, I thought I saw in there.
the plan talks about that, and it not just in this intersection, but throughout the corridor.
The timers throughout.
Yeah, throughout, yeah.
Well, and when we were on our walk, we talked about, well, wouldn't it be nice to have a pedestrian crosswalk over there? Because I've had that
That's
come
what I was
up for
wondering, yeah.
years, and it's just so expensive, but that would.
Well, you'd have to have
be
that
nice.
ADA accessible, and I think
Yeah,
that,
the elevation, you got the
Yeah.
Bill Zach and Graham, plus
Yeah.
the landing on the
Right.
north side is difficult as well. We explored it a little bit, but didn't end up entertaining drawing anything because the cost was,
it was too prohibitive.
it just felt like it was gonna be, pretty difficult.
Thank you, that's what I wanted to hear. That's
But that's such a hub, with the park and the Merchants Park and the whole deal, and
Well, now in the summer, I see more kids down there on bicycles
it
And that-
has so much potential.
within a couple hundred feet of that intersection.
Well, we saw it a little bit more when we had Subway there too, but we have kids going across from events, and I think we still do going over to Casey's and the likes of that to do business, then back to the ball fields or whatnot.
I think that's why the parking on the northeast corner there was brought up, because so many people during events use Grand Park at night for the parking, for spillover, and people are just running across Grant Road wherever to get to their cars, so that's why the parking came up versus but there were other good ideas too, so.
For that parking lot, that would probably require land acquisition in that area. Probably, from the city's perspective too. Yeah, that took me a couple hours to read through. But it had, I thought there was, I think it's pretty comprehensive what everything was listed in there. You probably would just have to take, you'd have to do sections at a time. I don't think you do it all.
This is a multi-year plan.
Yeah, it's a 20-year.
Yeah, and it's, you know, it's fun when you look back at plans and even ones we haven't done, looking back at the 2003 plan, how similar it is to what actually happened, you know? There was a lot of stock put into that plan clearly. I mean, when you look back at some of the drawings and some of the suggestions, and you go out on the streets, like, oh, it's, it's done, you know?
Yeah.
So,
It's real similar to what was even drawn up at the time.
And it's also important to know that we didn't do everything exactly in that plan. So it becomes kind of a living, breathing document, but it provides that direction.
Well, I think that's very nicely outlined here, especially with the presentation showing what this is and what it is not. And you want to be careful over 20 years not to make promises of an exact rendering of how it'll be. It is that fluid document.
Well, this is a public hearing, so if there's anybody else in the public, I don't know if there's anybody else
No one online.
online.
We may
at
have
all.
one individual in the audience.
I'm good.
No.
I'm, just want to hear everything.
Yeah. So this would be available for some of those private landowners to be able to look at.
Yeah, and Charlie didn't know, but I mean, we've held a series of meetings, and one of them
Yeah.
specifically was, we invited, actually I called and talked to every one of the private property owners along the corridor, invited to a meeting we had at the public library. So we did have a good discussion there. We've held another open house that also was widely attended by the community. So we've had some fairly good attendance and a lot of public input throughout the process.
One of those that is there was a little confusion. We thought they were going to be forced for a lot of things, but after we had that open house, they all realized it's not that. It's a long range thing. But it was good we did those.
But I think it just gives us a good transition to go from one corridor project to another so that you keep the enhancements going down the road instead of just stopping and being done.
And whatever the city decides to do, I think that can be a springboard for the private property owners to say, look how nice this looks. Maybe, you know, it may spur some imagination, creativity. Just, they threw out a lot of ideas that nothing is carved in stone's place in.
Well, and that's the beauty of this is it gives us those entrepreneurs and those Imagineers drive and their ideas to really help guide us as well.
There's items in here that we can do from the city perspective too, so that we could start on down the road. If there's no other comments, it is 6:03 and we'll close the public hearing. Through that page in the other spot already. Back up here. Yeah, that's the one I was looking for. With that, if there's no other questions, I'll look for a motion to approve the Corridor of Commerce Plan 2.0, Highway 30 Corridor Plan for Carroll.
So move. Second.
There's a motion and a second. If there's no other discussion, we'll go ahead and vote, please.
Fleschner.
Yes.
Dirks.
Yes.
Base. Yes. Seaman.
Yes.
Haley.
Yes.
Cox.
Yes.
Motion's approved.
Thank you. Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you.
The next item under the agenda is reports. And the first one is the report of a bid opening for a 100-inch front mount mower for the golf course. And I believe that's Jack.
I will go ahead and remove myself from this as my company is involved with this.
Thank you, Clay.
On June 21st, we had two bids that were received at the time of the bid opening. Low bid that met the specifications outlined in the documentation was Van Wall Equipment, Madrid, Iowa. The final net cost was $31,975.49. Like I mentioned above, more met all specifications outlined. Four-wheel drive was the big thing, and that's very beneficial. Talking with Scott Hawkinson, the park superintendent. In the mornings, especially when I'm mowing, it's wet. There's a lot to do. Have those four-wheel drives up the hills in those areas that they're going to be mowing with this mower. They like the extra traction for that reason. So that was one of the main differences on the two bids. Answer any questions if you have anything with that, but our recommendation would be to accept the bid from Van Wall for the final cost difference, $31,975.49. And I will point out, just with time consuming with staff, we're going from 72 inch to 100 inch. So when you're mowing, you're getting an additional 28 inches every time you're mowing those areas. So it's nice to have that additional swipe through.
They make four-wheel drive lawnmowers? Maybe I need to upgrade. Did not know that.
You have too flat a yard.
What's that?
Too flat a yard.
Yeah, that's probably true, but I don't know, maybe go faster. Are there any questions for Jack? If not, I'll need a motion to approve the bid from Van Wall Equipment, Madrid, Iowa, for the 100-inch front mount mower for the golf course for the final cost of $31,975.49.
So moved.
There's a motion and a second. If there's no other discussion, we'll go ahead and vote, please.
Seaman? Yes. Fleishner?
Yes.
Cox?
Yes.
Base? Yes. Jerks?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you. The next item is the report of a bid opening, a ceiling suspended basketball hoop, and Jack, please.
Thank you. The original bracing of the basketball hoops, there's 4 of them down there at the rec center and the gym, are original with the building. Since the pickleball courts playing pickleball indoors, they like to have those hoops raised the west side. So it's every day we're raising those up and down. You can hear the wear and tear. They're just aged. You know, they're put in 76, and they've, outlasted their time. It's time to replace them. We're not replacing basketball hoops or the backboards. We've replaced some of those over the years with cracks, and rims we've replaced several times. So we don't have to replace any of that. We just want to take it off the wall and put it to the ceiling. So when we raise them, similar to the schools, they will raise up, come up together like this. There might be someday we want to do the same thing with the volleyball net. We understand we can bring them both up and they'll be out of the way. So it's just time, checking with RDG, saying, we're gonna have a raised running track, we're gonna do some construction. Will these be in the way? I don't want to put them up and then have to take them down for the construction. No, they'll be in far enough. They'll be raised up. They'll be out of the way. They just won't be used. Mike and I were just talking today. What kind of K-frame we'll be looking when we put the track in, when we're doing that work. Hopefully, there's not a lot of downtime in the gym. But the end product with the air conditioning in there, I can tell you, yesterday with the hoop it up, watching my son play, it gets warm in there. So, but the basketball hoops, it's time to replace them.
So the current ones are bolted into the cinder block?
Yeah. They raise up.
When all the stress is going on the cinder block.
Yeah.
So they'll be compatible if we go follow through with the rec center project.
Yeah.
They'd be compatible for what we would need to be able to do in there.
If RDG was designing new hoops, this would probably be a similar system they would do it. Connection into the ceiling, you see those. The newer gyms.
I know it doesn't have anything to do with it, but I would feel remiss if I didn't just remind us that we do have the Southside Park backboards are looking a little little stinky anymore. I've had some public comment on them too. And, you know, when we think about new backboards, I just like to bring it up.
We talked about that. We finished the sidewalk around there and,
Yeah.
and it's just getting the staff in there to do that. Buy them. Those are 4,000 or 5,000 for the backboards. 2,500, so 4,000 or 5,000.
It's on our radar is the important thing, and I just want to make sure people know it is still on our radar.
Yes, it's used a lot.
Thanks, Jack.
So the ones that were taken out, are they reusable, resellable? Could we use those backboards at Southside Park, or is that,
We're keeping the backboards
yeah,
at the rec center.
oh,
Yeah, these were metal. We'll get something similar to Veterans Park
oh,
or
okay,
Grand Park.
for down at Southside Park.
We nice to have ones that raise up and down if we do programming.
Just so people know it's on our radar, we're gonna keep it in mind and work towards it.
How much downtime are you looking at here?
We talked about that a little bit today. We just don't have a good idea at this point. There'll probably be some, but hopefully we go during the summer. And if we need to try to utilize another gym for our members, we'll reach out to other gyms in the community and see if we can't rent or have those gyms available.
Are you talking construction or backboard or hoop replacement?
Construction of this.
This is probably 30 days.
I'm sorry, I thought you meant when we did that.
You probably could have half the gym open while they do two, and then
Just
switch
do
them
it
around.
one day,
Yeah.
go back the next day, do the other two.
Okay.
Absolutely. Our business, so.
Yeah. Any other questions for Jack? If not, I will look for a motion to approve the bid from H21 Group, Cedar Falls, Iowa, for the total bid price of $20,600 for the ceiling suspended basketball hoops.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. There's no other discussion. We'll go ahead and vote, please.
Cox?
Yes.
Space? Yes. Haley?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
Dirk?
Yes.
Fleischner?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you. I trust everyone's read the committee reports. I have no comments this evening. Are there any comments from the city council?
I just one, I'd like to read a text message I received.
Yes, sir.
This relates to the fact that we dedicated the pickleball courts. I had someone in the neighborhood, this is not a complaint, this is actually a compliment. It says pickleball courts still in use after 3 hours. And that was on the morning this past week, so they're apparently getting well used.
Yeah,
It's good to see that, so.
I saw them used this morning when I drove past.
There's quite a group there, 7 a.m. till,
We went to the dedication, I have a feeling that same group's there all the time,
yeah,
a lot, it's great. So,
most used group in the activity of the rec center, you know.
really,
In the mornings, yeah, definitely. We get some basketball people, but they're a committed group and they love the sport.
You still doing pickleball in the rec center now?
No,
They'll just let them go outside.
this winter they'll be back.
They'll be
Rain days, they'll probably want to come in. We lower the curtain for them, get the pickleball nets out.
Very good, thank you. Any other comments? Any comments from the city manager?
Just one little quick update. This is kind of related to COVID-19. Some things we're looking to make some changes, additional changes, but as of today, this afternoon, our 14-day positivity rate was 0.8%. We had one case in the last 7 days in Carroll County, and only four in the entire month of June. So this is the lowest since June 8th of last year. So, we've definitely been heading in the right direction in Carroll County. Vaccination, there's 9,916 or 19 people in Carroll County that are fully vaccinated, with another 425 that received at least the first of 2 doses. So we've been making changes as different data points. We've continually make those changes. We'll continue to make those changes. So a couple changes of July 1st regarding rental housing code. Most cities have dropped the protocols for that. We will be looking to do that. What I'll tell you is we've not had any issues with landlords that have been fine with how we've been doing inspections. So that'll be another change we'll make. And then additionally, we've been recommending mask use. They'll tell you, in all of our city facilities, they'll tell you that most people are not wearing masks. So we'll take that signage down also on July 1st. So, obviously we'll continue to watch data. If it warrants to make additional changes, we'll do it at that point. But we'll continue to kind of dial these back. So just an update to council on that. Be happy to answer any questions on that.
I would say one thing, and that is if we do remove the signs, the social distancing signs, that's probably even more important than the masks, if you ask me. Those I would hope to stay. There's no reason not to stay 6 feet apart and wait for somebody instead of standing next to them. But, that's a big, just a reminder.
Yeah.
It's good to have that.
And it's a balancing act, because I will tell you, I've been in 2 swim meets indoors,
Oh, well, yeah.
and pretty much people are on top of each other.
Well, I get that. I'm talking about in this facility where people would be standing, just a reminder that they, if they're coming to pay a water bill, the next person doesn't have to stand in there.
Yeah.
I think this whole thing is a permanent expansion of people's personal space. Socially, I really do. That will change, I think, permanently, so.
Anything else? If not, I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. We'll go ahead and vote, please.
Bates? Yes. Fleshner?
Yes.
Haley?
Yes.
Cox?
Yes.
Seaman? Stewart?
Yes.
We are adjourned.
Thank you.